Naptown Tuner here. I've got a couple cylinder heads. This is Audi VW from about 2009 all the way up to about 2016, 17. And then this one's the 16, 17 all the way up to about current day. There's a few differences, but the code that I had to replace for this video is P0341. Had to do with this intake camshaft, but I was really hoping that it was not the intake camshaft. I was hoping it was a few other things. So the first things I did was I replaced all three of these parts together. I replaced this magnetic adjuster, which this camshaft bridge goes like this. Of course, the camshaft goes in first. This slides on both of the camshafts, and then this oil actuator, this oil flow control valve, goes inside the camshaft, and then this part right here gets bolted in the end. So I've never actually seen one of these go bad yet. If someone's seen one of these go bad, you can tell me in the comments. So far in my experience, these have worked flawlessly for every single engine. But I'm starting to see more and more stuff every day, so who knows? All these parts are planned obsolescence. All this stuff is junk. They could have made everything better, but they chose not to. This right here has a little tiny spring in it. So the first thing, it's supposed to sit flush. This is the one for the newer engine, so it's got a little screen in there. The ones for the older engines do not have a little screen in here. But this little button right here is supposed to sit flush. So if I could prop this up, one of the things I do is I check the spring in this oil flow control valve just by simply pushing this button in. I'm having troubles here. Just push the button in and make sure that it feels like there's some spring resistance. And you see that little clip? There's a little metal clip that goes all the way around that. I've seen that break out, and I've seen the spring inside internally fail. So when in doubt, just replace this whole thing, because I have seen them fail. The other thing is, this has a screen that blows out all the time. So whenever I install a new camshaft bridge, or whenever I put this back on, I always pop this whole thing out. This is not the correct tool, but I usually get like a flathead screwdriver, and I stick this down in here and I carefully pop that all the way out, right? Because that causes more problems than what it's worth. And then I've actually seen this case broken before. I've seen the aluminum around here broken before, and I've also seen this ball. There's a little spring behind it. I've seen that broken before. So you want to push this little ball in and make sure that it bounces back to where it started from. If you put it like this and that ball just falls down, then this is junk. Now, they did make, I've got one here somewhere, I could probably show it to you. I will. They did update this design right here. The only update to it was, see this lip right here that goes around? It goes a little bit higher. So that's really the only update they did to it. They still put this screen in there, and I still pop this brand new screen out every single time, because I've even seen the brand, they did not update that design with the screen. It's almost like that's something that they installed in there to screw people over. Because what happens is, it'll plug your oil hole. So the oil goes through here. The oil goes through here. It can what I normally find is this screen is plugged in that port right here, and it can also go all the way through either one of these sides, and which is a lot more rare. Very rarely see that, but it can. When a small piece comes off, it can get lodged into one of these things. And what I typically do is I pull out these lifters one at a time and blow air through it, so it back feeds through this way. So I pull this one out, blow air. Pull this one out, blow air. Pull it, and I put the other one back in every single time, blow air. And you feel the air coming out this hole. So hopefully that's enough to blow out whatever debris might be in there, if there is debris in there. The other thing that I do is I look at this screen right here, because this is where the oil gets supplied for the vacuum pump. And sometimes this oil screen right here can be all clogged up. So I do not necessarily recommend taking that screen out, because it could give you a little bit too much oil flow and change your oil pressure. But I definitely make sure that that's clean. So I pop this screen out and blow it out both sides. There's a little tiny pinhole in the back of it. If I had a pair of pliers, I could pull it out and show it to you, but you just have to trust me. There's a little tiny pinhole in the back of it, so you can pull that out and clean that out. So going back to this camshaft, the first thing I did was, even though I didn't see anything wrong with this camshaft bridge, I went ahead and put a new one in. I put a new style one in for my buddy. And then I put a new oil flow control valve in. And I went ahead and put a magnetic adjuster in as well, because I really didn't want to take the timing apart and take the cam tray off and replace the intake camshaft. These new intake camshafts cost $1,000. You can get an aftermarket one for $700. But I have used a Chinese intake camshaft. Actually, I used two back to back. The first one gave me an instant timing fault. I believe it was actually the same timing fault I'm dealing with here. But so it was off eBay. I emailed them and whatever. They didn't even want the old one back. They just sent me another one. Same timing fault. And it took me a while to get to replacing the second one, because it was such a pain to take all this stuff apart and replace a camshaft. So the second time I replaced the intake camshaft from the Chinese camshaft, I was just driving the car myself. I put about 2,000 miles on it. By the time I finally got around to changing the intake camshafts, the third time, these bolts were coming out of the Chinese camshaft. These bolts never come out. I would have actually taken this plate off right here and shown you in this video, but these are special poly drive. These are not Torx. These are poly drive, and I don't have the bits for them. I've had to grind down a T27 before and hammer them in and take them out, but I've never actually seen anything broken inside here. It's probably just worn seals, because there's little separating compartments in here, and the oil flows through here up into this oil control valve, and then this magnetic adjuster, that little pin right here, depending on whatever electrical signal you get, it pushes out. It pushes on this button, and then you get your oil flow that goes through here, and then it actually adjusts. It advances and retards the time based on the oil that goes inside this type of like variator. So that's the VVT. Now the newer style has that on both the intake and exhaust. These are the newer style camshafts. You got two adjusters. The older style, you see, this does not have a place for the oil flow adjuster. So the older style exhaust camshaft is just the slide type. See, these right here are solenoids that pop out at about 3,000 RPM and actually physically slide through these slots to a higher profile. You see the profile difference on these cams? Now you don't want to just willy-nilly slide these camshafts back and forth, because if you go, I've got a different video where I demonstrate it. If you slide it out, there's a ball and a spring in there that'll shoot out and you'll never find it. Supposedly you can buy those little balls and springs at the dealership, but you gotta have someone knowledgeable about that. Anyway, so in this particular case, I had an EPC light flashing, a check engine light that would come on immediately at startup, and almost immediately. If not immediately, it would come on after about a mile. And it ended up being this adjuster mechanism in the camshaft. So there is no replacing this mechanism right here. You have to replace the whole shaft, and this thing is about $1,000, like I said. And you could probably get the aftermarket brand. There's a couple different people that make it for about $700, but the OEM Audi one is about $1,000. So at that point, I don't know. I probably could have shown you. I can't remember if I installed it or not. I think I do have an aftermarket camshaft still on the shelf, but I'm going to use that in my own vehicle as well, because I've had the two bad Chinese camshafts. Really, I don't want to do the stuff over and over, so it's probably worth it just to buy the $1,000 camshaft versus the $700 camshaft, in my opinion, because you don't really know what you're getting unless you get OEM, and even OEM isn't that great apparently, because I'm showing you everything seems to fail. It's all parts, right? It's all a bunch of junk parts. So what else do I have to say? I think that's about it. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I probably will not answer them. Until next time, a Naptown tuner.